I see
Oh
them
my
coming
goodness.
in. The
Oh my
final
goodness.
session of National
Hi,
Sauna Week.
everyone. Yes. Marjorie Nelson, our winner of the sauna last year, is here. I've seen her throughout this week. Friends in Pacific Northwest showing up. Bill Eaton, our raffle winner, Christine Manninen from last session.
Hey,
Let's do the
folks,
chat. Yeah.
let us know where you're coming from. We see your names. Don't worry, we can't see you if you
Mhm.
have, kids in the background, if you're in the sauna right now, but you can see us and we can see your name is here. So Amy Sylvester, hi. Alec McDonald, hello.
Anna
Bill,
Valma,
we got
thank you.
a bevy of Bills. We have three Bills right in a row, and Bill Gifford here. So we have the quad Bills. Let us all know where you're coming from. Eric, I see you there. I see a couple of Erics. Eric's Roldan and Eric Munke. Let us know where you're coming from, y'all. We want to hear. We got Reno, Nevada. We got Wisconsin, Ann Arbor. What's up from Chicago, BC, Canada, from Anita. Well done. We are so excited to have you all here today. This room is filling up. We got more and more folks coming, and we have people from all over the US right now. Bill's joining us from Utah. Tommy, we never know where he is. He could be in any part of the world.
He's like the Finnish
Minea's,
Where's Waldo.
A
yep,
little bit, yes. I'm in Chicago right now, so greetings also from Chicago.
wonderful.
Yes.
Minea's in Portland, and I'm in Arizona, unusually so.
Uh-huh,
Usually I'm
okay.
in Minnesota on these calls from home. But we got
Hmm.
Erie, Pennsylvania represented, UP of Michigan. I see
Denmark,
Olympia,
Switzerland,
Washington.
Luca, again, you're
Luca,
back.
Hello
welcome.
from Puerto Vallarta.
Hola.
Hola.
Fun.
Hey, Norman, good to see you there. He says, saw you last at FinFest. Gary from Traverse City, Michigan. What's up, Gary? So we got folks from all over, and Minia, we know we're going to have more coming, but we have a lot to cover. And
Oh,
Bill Gifford has a lot to say about sauna. So why don't we kick off, get things moving, get things going. Minia, this is the end of the week, National Sauna Week, the final, maybe the pinnacle session. Who knows? We're excited about Bill joining us today. How are you feeling, Minia? Give me the sort of what was the thing you learned? What's the memory that you're going to take away after this year's events?
I'm so thrilled, right? I feel I'm tired. I'm happy. I feel like I've come out of a really good sauna session. I'm exhausted and just relaxed right now. It's feeling like really good. We're going to announce the winner of our big giveaway at the end, and that is just so thrilling. I'm so pleased how it's all come together and how much support there's been from the community this week. So I'll do some thank yous and we'll get the show on the road. Um, Heart is totally full. Thank you so much to all of our wonderful presenters. I hope I got all your faces in there. It's 33 amazing presenters this week, and just the content has made us laugh, made us cry, made us really look inside, and also gotten very technical. So hopefully we've covered enough that people feel that they've elevated in their sauna practices and deepened in their sauna spirit. And I'll introduce Tommy Flanagan, our executive director, to talk a bit about Finlandia Foundation. I'm wearing our Fiercely Finished t-shirt today. Tommy, thanks for being here. Thanks for being here all week. Tell us about Finlandia Foundation.
Absolutely. Yeah, gladly. Always take an opportunity to do that. Thank you, Minea, our communications director, for putting this together. Justin for being such a great partner in Sauna Week, not only this year, but for the past several years. And this is exactly the work we do at Finlandia Foundation National. Sauna Week's been around for 5 years. We've been around for 70 plus years, connecting Finns, Finnish Americans, and importantly, friends of Finland about Finnish American culture. And as we're seeing in this day and age, Justin can attest to this probably in a very personal way that increase in interest in sauna in North America from Finland has been phenomenal. And we are here for it at Finlandia Foundation National to bring people together on that. We're not the experts of sauna, but we value Finnish culture. So when we can bring that to the conversation, we're always interested in doing that. We operate with 60 chapters across the country. We run a scholarships and grants program every year that awards funds to people who are doing relevant and interesting projects or studies that relate to Finnish America. And as this slide sort of shows as well, this foundation is our people. We are made up of people and members across the country, friends and partners. Sauna is one of those things that really highlights all of our core values from heritage and history, health and well-being, innovation and forward thinking, and partnership and collaboration, which I think is really evident in this final last session of Sauna Week for the fifth year in a row. So with that, visit us at finlandiafoundation.org. The only way we can do what we do is from support that we get from people like you. So check us out and contribute if you like what you see. And with that, I'll thank Justin. I'll turn it back to Minia, and thank you all for tuning in to the fifth annual National Sauna Week.
Thank you, Tommy. I'll cruise through these thank you slides of our sponsors and partners. This has just been like so expansive. We have Finnair this year helping us out, Sauna from Finland, and it's so important to build that connection to the motherland. So thank you to them both. Garetti is a silver sponsor. Beautiful designs and lighting for your sauna. Redwood Outdoors out of Seattle selling saunas and sauna accessories. Check them out. And Michigan Sauna, if you're in Traverse City, go enjoy a mobile sauna on the lakefront. Thank you, Daniel Saria, for being a sponsor as well this year and always supporting us. Birch sponsors, so many to name, but they're here listed. And all of these guys are offering deals on saunas if you wanted to take home a sauna this week. Discounts up to $700. So visit our website, nationalsaunaweek.com/sauna dealers. And it's not enough to just talk about sauna. We want you to get into the sauna. So visit our sauna map at sauna, find a sauna, the find a sauna page, and try to get into a sauna as well. We highly, highly encourage it, of course. And thank you to our partners, International Sauna Association, North American Sauna Society, Sauna 8, Cedar and Stone, which is Justin's company and doing beautiful sauna stuff and builds all across the land, really, and then Sauna Glow. Thank you to all of you. And thank you to our raffle prize donors as well. So many people involved. It's a lot to juggle, but it really shows that there's a community behind this and doing beautiful things together. And we are so, so grateful. Stay tuned to the end of the session. We'll announce the lucky winner. We have picked them. So hopefully maybe they're even in the room. But with that, we'll get into our show. Justin, Bill, thanks for being here. Thanks for
Great to be
closing us
here.
out.
A lot of pomp and circumstance and introduction at the end of National Sauna Week because it truly has been a community and a movement and a lot of people making this happen. Minia and Tommy, thank you so much for having us. And yeah, today we're going to dive in with Bill Gifford, you guys. And so let me just say something before I introduce Bill with all the respect he deserves. And that is, we are in an interactive room. We are sitting around the coffee table together today. So what I ask and what Bill asks of anybody listening in is we want to hear your questions. We want to see your comments. We want to interact with you during the time. Bill's a writer, but he's also can answer great questions. So feel free to send those over in the Q&A window. We're going to make sure this is a kind of an experience where we're diving in together on those things. We might ask you a couple poll questions to dive in. And then we're going to record this so that you can watch it later or send it to your friends afterwards. Today we're kind of deep diving in on both the culture as well as the science because Bill, you guys, if I can Bill, I'm gonna give you a real pomp and circumstance moment. I know you don't need it always, right? You're a real guy. Guys, he loves to
Go for
sauna.
it.
He's the kind of guy that you'd want to go skiing with. And Bill is a veteran journalist. He's written for magazines, books, New York Times bestselling author multiple times over. And that comes with kind of a focus often, Bill, in your writing being around extraordinary athletes, cutting edge health science, the outdoors, and now all things sauna with your newest book, Hot Wired, The Hidden Power of How Heat Makes Us Stronger. And today we're going to dive in on both what does this say and how does it tie to National Sauna Week. And so, Bill, thank you for joining us. What a joy to be here with you. We've known each other for years. We met at a sauna festival, of course, in
That's right.
research preparation for
Yep.
this book. So, as we kick things off, I just want to say thanks for being here. What an honor to have you from Utah today, getting to be a part of all this.
It's great to be here. It's great to see you again, Justin. Um, And thanks for having me. And thanks to the Finlandia Foundation for making this happen. Yeah, psyched to be here.
So, folks, in a minute, you're going to see a poll pop up in front of you. And that poll is going to ask you an important question because we also want to know, you've now known who's in the room on our side. We want to know a little bit about you. So, Tom, let's hit that button. We'll get the poll going so that we can see who's in the room. And we want to know, in what ways are you interested in the business of sauna? You know, kind of how are you coming to this space? It could be you're an enthusiast, right? You're somebody who loves this. Maybe you've grown up with it, maybe you've discovered it, and you want to learn more. Perhaps you're somebody who's that kind of business-oriented person. I'm thinking about starting a business. Minea mentioned there's sort of a movement of this happening all over the country right now, which is so wild. North America is discovering sauna for the first time. And then also, maybe you're somebody who is currently running a business. So that's going to pop up right there. Tap in there, and it says hosts and panelists can't vote. But Tom, let's make sure this goes live for everybody, and then we can hit it so that we can see some of the results happening, so that we know people are going in the room and people are here. Now, oh, great.
Boom.
I'm seeing the results now. We got lots of enthusiasts. 70% of the room, Bill, they're in it because they love it. We got about 22% who are those folks that are like, "Hey, I'm thinking about something. I'm trying to start something." And 8% of us like me are in the trenches. We've got a business. We're open. The doors are open. We're hosting people for sauna. We're designing and building all the things. So that's our room today, Bill. And folks are here
Looks
to kind
good.
of dive in. I want to hear, Bill, as we begin, how'd you get into this? You're not a guy with a Finnish last name with too many vowels in it like me. You are one who has really entered through, in many ways, your sort of journalistic lens on it. But tell us the story. How'd you get into the sauna world, and what drew you into it?
Yeah, so I have a confession to make, Justin, even though we've been on the bench many times together.
Confess away.
5 years ago, if you'd said, let's go to a sauna, um, and that's would have sounded like the worst possible idea to me. I would have said, no, thanks, but no thanks. Not going to do it. I didn't like heat. At least that was the story that I told myself. I've always been a winter guy. In fact, I had a birthday recently, and my mom shared that on the day I was born, it was 17 degrees Fahrenheit out, and this was Alabama, so it was really cold. I was born in the middle of winter. I love winter sports. Don't really love summer, but I like snow. I moved to Utah to ski, so that's sort of the background. And
So you've oriented your life around the cold, even though you
yeah,
grew up in some warm places. Got it.
yeah, I grew up in Alabama and Washington, D.C. mostly. So, and I loathed the DC climate with the hazy, humid, it's like a jungle. Didn't like it. So, anyway, fast forward a few years ago, we had a pretty harsh winter here in Utah. And uh it was like I was shoveling snow every day. It was like a Duluth winter, actually. Um, Freezing cold. So I just started going to the sauna at the back of my gym, like every, 3 times a week, 4 times a week. And it just felt nice. Like I just wanted to feel warm. And it just I'd also been going through some like difficult stuff like in my life at the time, like a difficult work situation, stuff like that. It just made me feel better. So I just sit there in the dark, in the heat. And it wasn't even, it was the sauna that has the do not throw water on the stones sign, that thing. But it made me feel great. And like I slept better. I was more relaxed. I was less anxious. And so, yeah, I kind of like fell in love with it in a weird way.
I think that's sort of beautiful, though, because we're going to explore today the fact that so many people are entering into sauna through health and wellness. And Bill, you've
Yeah,
really done the research there, right? The science is sort of pushing this forward. So
yeah,
people are going to hear from that. And you found
exactly.
it as respite, as not just as performance, right?
Right. But, at the same time, I was aware of the research around saunas and and health, and particularly physical health. So I was aware that that existed, but and I looked at it for two of the books I had written, and kind of not dismissed it, but I didn't really do the full deep dive. But then around this same time, I got a magazine assignment from a health magazine, Men's Health, to start to look at the sort of science of sweating and the science of heat and athletic performance. And that actually really dovetailed. That brought me back around to those Finnish sauna studies that we're going to talk about in a minute. And I found this, like, there was this incredible story about humans and heat, and how we've evolved to really thrive in the heat. Going back, to the very beginnings, our very beginnings as a species.
So I'd like to know, let's do another quick poll. I want to make sure nobody's feeling sleepy after lunch here with us, Bill, as they're getting in. I'm going to keep buzzing them and asking them questions.
Okay, I'll
Uh,
try to keep them awake too.
let's do it. So Tom, let's do our second poll here. We want to know, how are people entering sauna? What's the draw? What's the thing that brings you there? And there are many, I will say this, there are many ways that you might enter into the space. Maybe somebody knows this and they discovered sauna because it was in the back of their gym, like Bill. Maybe somebody literally was born in the sauna. We know that culturally that's true. And so we want to hear from you. Tom's going to launch the poll here, and it's going to, what is that primary reason you go? Is it health and wellness? Is it culture? Is it social and community? What are the ways we kind of have that ready? And what are the reasons you come in there? Because we want to know. We want to know what are the drivers there. In the rest of our time together, the arc of our conversation kind of is this. It's looking at the science, it's looking at the culture, it's looking at the social moments, and it allows us then to uh, really go deep here. And Bill's done the research for us. So some of us Finns like us, we actually kind of take it for granted, all the health benefits, because we know it culturally. Bill, we're having tech issues. Apparently, it won't let us launch. We won't know everybody's reasons. We're
Okay.
just going to have to
Well,
dive in. We're going to have to
okay.
dive.
Flying blind. Okay.
So you had the idea here. This is good. You had a book assignment to start exploring it. Take us now. What's the idea on this book, right? You sort of got the chance to go explore heat for health. Let's go there for a while and let's talk about the health
Sure.
and science. But how did you get into it and what did you start to discover?
Well, going all the way back to the beginning of our to our through our evolutionary history, it turns out that we've actually evolved to really do well in the heat, to thrive in the heat, unique among all other animals. We have like 2 to 4 million of these little sweat glands all over our bodies, which are just there to cool us down. No other animal sweats to cool itself, really. Some do a little bit, but it's not effective. So, looking back at our history, it turns out that this was this like evolutionary superpower that we alone got through a series of genetic mutations that happened in a short period of time. All of a sudden, we became these very sweaty apes, right? And so, what did that allow us to do, or our ancestors? All of a sudden, this was in a very hot place, the Rift Valley of Africa. And so now these sweaty ape ancestors of ours were able to go out and forage for food in the middle of the day. And this was awesome because all of their predators and all their competitors had to stay in the shade because they couldn't cool themselves because they couldn't be in the heat of the midday sun, but we could. So that was one advantage. The second advantage came along later. And it turns out that we used this cooling power that we had from our sweat to basically hunt. So we could essentially chase after other animals, fur-bearing animals, prey animals, and basically run them down because we could run for a really long distance because we had this cooling power and they couldn't. So persistence hunting. So foraging and persistence hunting. So then we went from like kind of the middle of the food chain to the top, thanks to that power.
And it's all because of this superpower of sweating, our
Yeah.
ability for our bodies to cool ourselves down. The technical side of that, right, is sweat is getting rid of
So
water that
it's
then
pulling water from your cells and from your blood plasma up to the surface of your skin, and then it hits the surface of your skin and evaporates. So if you think about like when you get out of the shower, right? You're in the nice warm shower, and then you get out and you're freezing, right? Or you're like chilly all of a sudden because all that water is evaporating. That's this tremendous cooling power of evaporation. And somehow evolution harnessed that physical property of water and turned it into this like super cooling system for us. And at the same time, so this is I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but that meant we could adapt to like hot conditions, right? And handle hot conditions. At the same time, we lost, or our ape ancestors lost all their body hair, or most of their body hair. And so that the sweat could evaporate. And so what that meant was that as we, you know, more recently in our history, as humans migrated to places like Finland, where it was cold, we were at a bit of a disadvantage, right? Because we're shivering, we're essentially naked apes. We're shivering in these cold climates. And so, kind of my theory for how things like sauna originated is that we kind of craved these hot spaces, these warm spaces, because that meant survival.
I
Being in a
love
warm
this idea.
space with other people could mean the difference between life and death in a climate like Finland.
I love this idea that these traditions are sort of written into our DNA, right? This
Yeah, so cool.
superpower of being the mammal that can continuously go because of our sweating superpower and our ability to sort of then desire to stay warm through long winters is sort of written in us. It's not just opulence or luxury. You know,
Yeah,
sauna tends to be painted as pampering in some settings. In others, it's, especially in Finland, it's essential. And what
yeah,
you're saying is it's not just essential, it's like written into our DNA that we are born to sweat. We're meant to sweat. We're meant to adapt to larger heat cycles than just the
exactly,
72
exactly.
to 75
Right,
degrees that we
right.
so often live in.
Right, right. And most of us spend our time in that narrow temperature window, like what I'm in now and what you're in now. But, going back, you go back a few thousand years and people would experience, or even a few hundred years, people would experience a pretty big fluctuation in the course of a day. And so we have this like thermoregulatory, it's called thermoregulation, controlling our body temperature. And it's really important to survival. And a lot of our physiology is geared around maintaining that constant body temperature. And so we have all kinds of mechanisms for handling both heat and cold.
So the book really, one of the things in it, it's not just a sauna book, and though we are here on a day at National Sauna Week, but it's sort of explaining underneath that, Bill, of like why are we as humans able to do all this work in the heat and adapt to heat. Before we go specifically into science and culture of sauna, what did you learn about sort of heat adaptation? Maybe give us a few examples of that because you went through a pretty wild experience at multiple points in this to do the research. It wasn't just trips to Finland to go hang out in the sauna, which are in here and are
That
fun.
was the fun. That was the fun
Yep.
part.
That
Yep.
was the fun one. Maybe give a few on the not so fun one as
Yeah.
well, just because I think it's important to say how much Bill sacrificed for this book to exist.
I know where you're going with this. Um, yeah. So I'm a mediocre endurance athlete. And so I went to this place called the Corey Stringer Institute at the University of Connecticut, and they specialize in studying heat physiology for athletes, but also workers, which is a huge issue, especially in North America, workers exposed to hot conditions. And so they have a heat lab. And so I went to the heat lab to be tested, and that involved um, basically going into a room that had been heated up to about 100 degrees Fahrenheit and getting on a stationary bike and pedaling for like an hour pretty hard, 100 degrees, 40% humidity. Like that's what I left Washington, D.C. to escape. And so I was pedaling on this endurance bike, and then they monitor your body temperature, um, and just see how you do. And long story short, I didn't do very well. In fact, I felt like I was about to die. So I flunked the heat tolerance test, and so I went out. So they put me on this heat training program. So apparently, if you don't like the heat, if you don't do well in the heat, the cure to that is subjecting yourself to more heat. So I'd go out and I had coaches and scientists at the lab, and they'd make me go out and ride my bike on a hot day, with my body temperature monitored. And you do that like 8 or 9 times and get your body temperature up. Suddenly you become heat adapted. And that kind of blew my mind because, again, I'd always told myself, I'd always thought that I wasn't good in the heat. And it turned out that after basically like a month of heat training, I was fine. And in fact, I did this crazy bike ride in Texas called the Hotter in Hell 100, where it's 100 miles, 100 degrees, Wichita Falls, Texas in August. Sounds terrible, right? But it was fine. I was fine. I couldn't believe it. I was completely heat adapted. And by the way, you're heat adapted too, Justin. I noticed that
What,
the last time we
how do you
sauna
notice?
together.
How did you notice that, Bill?
Well, I was looking at you, I have to say, as we were sitting there with our shirts off in the sauna. Um, and I noticed that within minutes of getting in there, you were covered in sweat, and I wasn't because and so you started sweating sooner because you were heat adapted. And that's one of the key hallmarks of being adapted to heat because you sauna all the time. You sweat earlier, you sweat more, your cooling system works better, and you're
So
more
that's a
comfortable in a sauna.
it's yeah, it's counterintuitive because I think you're saying, hey, uh, your cooling system turns on faster, but so often we think about sweat as like a measure of our exertion, right?
Yeah,
Like, oh, you're not working very hard yet, or you're really adjusted to the workout, so you haven't broken a sweat yet.
right,
And
exactly.
what you're saying that the opposite's true. The people who are really heat adapted, their cooling system turns on right away, not their
Yep.
brow gets, sweaty because they're overly exerting. And yeah, I'm sort of a marathon runner when it comes to saunas. I've grown up in my whole life,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do them for work. It is deeply a part of, I don't remember my first sauna. It's sort of in my blood. And so, yeah, I'm probably pretty heat adapted. And I think that,
Without the need to exercise, right?
right.
It gives you similar benefits to exercise without so it's similar to like altitude training, like if athletes go up to altitude, they struggle a little bit at first, and then gradually over time they adjust and they have more red blood cells and they're better oxygen carrying capacity. The exact same thing happens with heat adaptation. And in fact, Olympic athletes use heat adaptation religiously. Like they can't afford not to because the Olympics are in hot places so much. So even there are these two um, the two men who represent the United States in the marathon, or who represented us in Paris. They live, here in Utah, and they finish their training runs in a sauna.
So let's shift gears here, Bill, because
Sure.
we've talked broadly about the book. Hey, it's all about heat. Our human bodies are designed to sweat. They have this superpower of thermoregulation and heat adaptation. Risto is on here saying, "Hey, this is interesting. Thank you. Let's keep going." Now let's shift to sauna because not only were you riding road bike races in Texas, you also discovered one of the great cultural experiences of heat in the world, that is
Yep.
the sauna or the sauna, depending on where in the world you are. I know we have a lot of cultural preservationists in the room who might reprimand Bill if he says sauna one more time, but we're gonna let it
My
slide.
wife reprimands me too. She's part Finnish.
See, he knows,
She's
he
like
gets it.
sauna.
Now, Bill, let's go into the science and what is true about the science around sauna, because I think a lot of folks in the room here either know parts of it because they've been in the industry or they know or they've heard, And then also some folks might not because they've just grown up with it, right? It's the fish swimming in water syndrome
Sure. Yeah.
where they
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
because it's just a part of their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does the research really say? Let's explore that for a little bit. And then we'll move to the cultural experiences of you traveling to Finland. But let's get into the science. Give us the overview.
Yeah, so about 10 years ago, this team of researchers in Jyväskylä, I think they're in Jyväskylä now, they might have been in Kuopio. Anyway, they published this sort of groundbreaking study where they they found that in like 2,300 Finnish men, the guys that use sauna every other day or every day had like 40% the rate of heart attacks, half the rate of all-cause mortality, about half the rate of strokes as the guys who did it one day a week. These are the famous studies that every influencer on Instagram talks about. Like, I can't even open my phone without having somebody do a reel where they recite those findings now. Even Tony Robbins was doing it the other day. It's out of hand. Okay. But it's an incredible study because it show an effect of that size. Like, no drug could possibly ever do that. Maybe exercise, maybe quitting smoking, but it's powerful. So you have to pay attention. And it wasn't just cardiovascular health. It was like it was Alzheimer's disease. So they frequent sauna use cut the rate of Alzheimer's disease by 2/3. So pretty impressive.
These are almost sort of like too good to be true levels of data, right? Like cutting
Yeah,
those risks in
yeah,
half. And so when I talk
yeah.
to some folks in the medical field, they're like, it sounds crazy, and the research and the data is very convincing.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is it doing that? Why are we getting those levels of reduced cardiovascular event, reduced Alzheimer's? Give us some of the why behind it, Bill.
I think mechanistically, you think that, like, being in a hot environment like a sauna causes your heart rate to accelerate and your blood flow. There's some, like, the amount of blood flow beneath your skin goes up like eightfold or 16-fold sometimes, to the point where most of the blood in your body is like zooming past the surface of your skin every minute. So it's all the blood goes to your skin, and basically it increases your heart rate, skin blood flow, and it sort of dilates your blood vessels, right? So again, similar to exercise, strong cardiovascular effect.
So
And they think
in
that may
effect,
have to,
it's
yeah,
it's the laziest form of a workout. A, right? We just get to go
not
in and
quite
sit
a
on the
workout.
benches.
It's almost a
It-
workout.
It's
Yeah,
almost a workout. And if I understand it right, it's sort of keeping our vasculatory system supple, right? We're
yeah, yeah,
dilating and opening. And
yeah,
then for you cold plungers in the room, you jump in the cold water and it shrinks all those blood vessels for a minute and sends all your blood to your core so you survive. And that
yeah,
piece sort of keeps your veins and arteries supple,
yeah. You
which
have lower
especially
blood
to,
pressure too.
yeah, like,
Yeah,
and then to brain health, right? Like that's one
yeah,
of the things that you want to keep those things moving.
yeah. You want to
So
keep all your blood vessels, and you want a lot of blood flow to your brain.
that checks out, like the sort of
Yeah,
common sense of that, right? Like keep
yeah,
your blood moving, keep your systems going, flush out the bad stuff, especially later in life. And these studies,
yeah,
a lot of them were sort of like over decades, right? It wasn't just
yeah,
like a one moment, 8 weeks trial. It was really, really longitudinal, correct?
yeah. So it was almost an accidental finding. So I look into it a little bit deeper, and it turned out that this was part of a huge effort to understand, back in the 80s, why Finnish men were dying of heart attacks at such a great rate. It was called the Kuopio Ischemic Heart Disease Study. And they picked these guys. They were all sort of 40 to 60, lived around Kuopio, kind of rural, small city. And it wasn't a sauna study. That's the key point here. It was a cardiovascular risk factor study. So these guys filled out, they did some baseline tests, right? Blood tests, blood pressure, that kind of thing. And then they filled out a 10-page questionnaire. And there were about 4 or 5 questions about their sauna habits, right? But there were questions about what they ate, who they lived with, how much money they made, Did they smoke? Did they drink? All kinds of stuff, right? 10 pages, 5 questions about sauna because it's Finland. And interestingly, um, there was no control group with this study in the sense of they found 12 guys out of 2,300 who didn't use sauna at all.
It's Finland. There's more
It's
saunas
Finland.
than there are cars there. So it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's in the
exactly.
blood, it's in the water in sort of the culture in such a real way.
Yeah.
Yes, there's no
And they asked
control.
them
There's
about
no
their
control.
sauna habits. So it's almost like asking North Americans about do they take a shower or a bath, right? And then they divided it up. How long do you stay in the sauna, and how hot is it roughly? And so that's where you get the data about the frequency, right? And then people also talk about the temperature. But
And
yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong, this was also in a time where Finland was not the bastion as the happiest country in the world 8 or 9 years
very
running.
far.
This was sort of like economic, troublesome times. The thing you said to me, it was hard to find a vegetable in the winter in
Yeah,
Finland. So there were a lot of negative health outcomes happening at the time, as opposed to model of Nordic living, right?
yeah. It was pre-EU. It was Finland was very much in the orbit of Russia or the Soviet Union at the time. A lot of bad cigarettes, a lot of bad vodka. Um, and it was kind of considered to be one of the less healthy countries in Europe, and now it's one of the more healthy and, as you pointed out, happier countries in Europe. But what's interesting about these studies is, so you the influencers love these, but there are a lot of things that could have been happening here. So if you're taking sauna 4 to 7 times a week, you might not have as much stress in your life, right? Potentially, you've got a little extra time, so that's one factor. But then a more interesting factor to me is like everybody on this side of the ocean talks about their sauna protocol, right? How long you should be in the sauna, exactly 19 minutes or longer, or how hot it should be, 175 degrees or hotter, you know, how many times a week, 4 to 7 times a week. Well, we don't actually know that. Like that study has not been done. These guys filled out a questionnaire once, and then the researchers kind of extrapolated that to say, okay, well, they did this the whole time. But like if you think about, like, for example, like how often you ate pancakes 20 years ago versus now, like is your pancake consumption the same as it was 20 years ago? Or maybe your pancake habits have changed.
I
People's
make a
habits
lot more for
change
my
with
kids
age.
now, so maybe my pancake intake is up. But I get your point here, right? Is that it was a slice of time and then
Yeah,
they went
yeah,
on. And I think it's so true that in North America, sorry, North Americans in the room with me, it so often is this teach me the protocol. If you're entering through the sort of health and wellness side of sauna, I think I hear it a lot like the sauna is the new piece of workout equipment, or it's the new workout routine,
yeah.
because people don't have the cultural knowledge of how to do this ritual and this practice. Perhaps the science is catching up to the cultural wisdom that it's good for us, but the understanding of how to do that practice is not very known and ubiquitous in the US. And so the main questions that I get asked are how hot should it be and how long should I be in there? That's it. And
And
that's a little like
yeah.
saying, hey, like how hot should I cook the steak and what cut of meat should it be? Well, depends on what you're going to make. Depends on what dish you're trying to make out of this. And there isn't one protocol. So I think that's freeing and helpful to sort of say to a broader audience, excited about the health benefits or excited about the cultural experience and saying, hey, there's not just one way to do this. Is that right, Bill?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, science probably could answer that question ultimately, like what's the optimal temperature, what's the optimal length of time for, you know, all the health benefits, the physical health benefits side of it. But these particular studies, they do make a pretty strong case for sauna being a healthy practice in your life. They don't tell you how to do it, and how long and the temperature is. So it is kind of freeing. And so it was interesting actually to actually go to Finland, with all this protocol stuff in my head and all this sciencey stuff in my head, and then experience how normal Finnish people actually do it, which was not caring about any of that stuff.
Yeah, the main draw in Finland is not I need to get my dose today, right? I need to get my dose of sauna because it's good for me today.
Yeah.
It
Yeah. It's
in
not
fact is
optimization, honestly.
yes, yes. So there's
Yeah.
some good questions coming in here, Bill. And since we're sort of on science, I wanna hit them
Oh,
and
good.
tell us
Let's
tell
do
us
it.
if you've sort of experienced or seen anything in the research on this. Lots of we got some big words coming. Mitochondrial
Okay.
biogenesis. And or
Yeah.
Tucker's asking, I'd love to hear your thoughts on heat shock proteins because these ones are
Oh,
connected.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
immersive and then does it help where you get the heat, right? Is sauna the best way to get it? Can you get it in a hot spring or a hot tub? Great
Mm,
question, Tucker.
that
So
is a
talk
great question.
about that one layer of, our cells at a cellular level, what happens with heat, and what's the data say there?
Mitochondrial biogenesis is something that happens more when you're activating muscle, which isn't really what happens in sauna. So that's more of an exercise related phenomenon. The heat shock proteins are kind of awesome. And they're called heat shock proteins, but they're really stress response proteins. But they are activated by heat. So our cells get heated up and there's this innate mechanism which predates us evolutionarily, like every animal has these. And they're like little cleanup or little maintenance guys. They get activated and they kind of help maintain other proteins. With proteins are like machines in your cell. That's a good way to think of them. So they kind of fix them up and make sure they don't get damaged by the heat, make sure DNA doesn't get damaged by the heat, and they get rid of like excess waste products building up in the cells. So it's a resilience mechanism. And that happens with heat adaptation. It also happens with short-term heat exposure, like in a sauna. It's really interesting though. Um, they actually those heat shock proteins, they may have some longevity related benefits. They also protect us from heat stroke and heat illness. So it's really awesome how like I love how like our biology responds to these stressors by making us stronger.
Yeah, there's sort of a resilience being built in us at the cellular level, not just at the psychological level, right? Of like, can you make it through hard things?
Yeah,
I think that's beautiful. So more folks are asking. We're going to keep going here on our
yeah, do
hot
it.
seat, pun intended there for you, Bill. Talk about is our ability to sweat enhanced or reset by cold plunging? You have a whole chapter in this book called The Case Against Cold Plunging. Now, talk a
Mhm.
little bit, because Gary's asking about that sort of sweatability as it relates to cold exposure, cold plunge, jump in a lake, cold shower, roll in the snow. Why do our bodies crave that when we're in the sauna, Bill?
Because your temperature's out of balance. Your temperature's too high, and your body wants to bring you back to equilibrium. That's the one reason you want to go jump in the icy lake or stand outside in the snow, like I did yesterday with snow falling on me. It was awesome. That's my kind of cold plunge. And I'm going to confess a bias. I don't love cold plunge. I don't love any kind of, you know, immersion in cold water. I'll do it in the right situation. It's not my favorite thing, but looking into the science, cold plunging, the science of cold plunging is not as advanced as the science of heat. So it's not as well developed. That's one, that's one thing. Second thing, um, cold water immersion um, has some negative effects. It's highly stressful. So, if you're like having a bad day, if you're on the edge, maybe not the best idea. It creates a massive stress response. Number two, it slows down because it, as you said earlier, because it constricts blood flow. So it also slows down things like muscle protein synthesis. So what that means in English If you go lift weights and then you get in a cold plunge, you're actually stopping the growth of new muscle. So you're stopping the benefits of that workout you just did. That said, cold plunging is exciting, wakes you up, gives you a hit of, norepinephrine. They used to use it against depression in like old school mental hospitals. There was something called they did something called the bain de surprise, the bath of surprise. So they'd have these like mentally ill patients, they'd be walking them around, and then they'd either like trigger a trapdoor or douse them in cold water. So they'd be involuntary cold plunge, and that was supposed to snap them out of whatever spiral they were in. So
I
anyway,
think
I feel like cold plunging has some mental benefits. It has some social benefits. It's fun to do. Like I do it with my son, and it's a real bonding thing. But I don't love it. Also, most cold plunges, commercial cold plunges, are too cold.
so
50s. You want them in the
they don't
50s Fahrenheit to get the
yeah, they don't
physiological
need.
benefits. So yeah, below 50, it's more pain than gain.
Okay.
Come at me. Come at me.
Come at me, cold plunge bros. Bill's giving you the details there. I think that's really interesting when you say, well, a couple things. One, the bath of surprise for some people would be way easier than the cold plunge of intention because
Yeah.
that level of fear, I watch people a lot being like, I think I'm gonna die if I jump in that cold water. My
Yeah.
body tells me
Yeah.
that I shouldn't do it.
You
And then
might. You
then they
might
see their
die.
friend do it. Yeah, it's Bill saying, hey, it's an intense reaction. And you get these endorphins afterwards. Your body and
Yeah.
your brain delivers a whole lot of dopamine after, and so people come out euphoric and smiling, and they say, "Well, my
Yeah.
friend did it. Maybe I
Yeah.
should do it." And so I do think there's this little bit of an addiction that happens when people get excited about cold plunging a lot and they keep doing it. And it's good to put it in the proper scientific boundaries here, Bill, where hey, it is unhelpful if you're trying to lift weights and work out on the front end. Um, and it is helpful as a bonding tool. It is helpful as a community event. It is helpful as something to bond, connect folks. I remember growing up every single Christmas and New Year's cutting a hole in the ice. Our Finns on the call will understand this. This is the Avanto moment where in Finnish there is a word for hole in the ice to go jump in because they love this so much. And
Y'all are crazy.
we're crazy. And I have so many memories from that,
So
right? Like
great.
those
Yeah.
were those were dear, dear formative core memories growing up with cousins and family uh and my wife always said, I don't know what family I'm marrying into. I'm never going to do that until our kids started going in the cold plunge in Lake Superior at the business and bringing their friends. And then she finally said, okay, okay, she's going to jump in.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's awesome. That's
yep.
actually awesome because in the family context, it's like your grandparents and parents are teaching you, and then you're teaching the next generation that it's good to do hard things, right?
Yes.
You're tough. You can do this. We're not going to baby you. So that's
Yep.
awesome, actually. I love that.
So, Bill, this has been we've been exploring a lot of the scientific stuff. What do we know about toxins and sort of the
Mm.
general American response to sauna is it is detoxifying you, and maybe that's the worst
Yeah.
case of like, oh, I had too many drinks last night, go in the sauna and sweat it out. Talk a little bit about what the science may or may not say there.
Yeah. I hate to be the one to you know pour the bucket of cold water on this, but you know, the mainstream science says that the way we detoxify our bodies is through our kidneys and through our liver. We basically excrete stuff that our bodies don't want. There's not great, I think, feel like as far as like sweating, you might sweat out some toxins. Like if you had a big night last night in the bar and you're hungover, you're going to sweat out some alcohol or some alcohol metabolites and smell like a brewery, right? You'll be that guy in the sauna. That's just because that stuff is in your cellular fluids in your blood. Um, you're not sweating it out in great concentrations. That said, I think the jury's still out because I feel like the studies that have been done tend to be kind of biased, and then the techniques of measurement aren't great. I hate to I'll bring up Brian Johnson, who's weird but fascinating. He's the multimillionaire biohacker, does crazy experiments on himself. He did a like a 2 month or 3 month sauna protocol and measured things like microplastics and then different toxic metals and chemicals in his body. And he found a pretty significant reduction. And that to me is interesting, even though it's an N of one, he can afford the tests, the expensive, high quality tests that like most research labs, frankly, can't. You know, he'll spend $100,000 on that project, right? Or more.
Yep.
So jury's out, but I wouldn't bet the ranch on it
Great.
being the case. But you do feel clean. You feel purified when you sweat. And when you sweat in a sauna, there's no clean like sauna clean. It's really incredible. And especially, I feel like the cold plunge does do something in that regard. So I feel purified. I don't know if my blood is more purified, but my skin is definitely purified.
I think qualitatively that feels right to me. And sauna is one of the great sweat bathing traditions or thermic bathing traditions around the
Yeah,
world. And so as we shift gears, I do want to land on some of these cultural experiences you had, Bill,
yeah.
because sauna uh, is the Finnish expression of that. If we were in Turkey, it'd be the hammam. If we were
Hmm.
in Central America, it'd be the temezcal. Russia, it'd be the banya. Korea would be the Jing. Native American culture would be the sweat lodge,
Sweat
right?
lodge. Yeah,
Humans have found out that hot and cold are good for us for millennia. And
yeah.
it's every culture or many cultures have different emphases of that. It's like good food, sort of, they all have different, we can find bread in a lot of places, and
Right.
they all
Different
are
kind. Everyone's
baked a
got different kind of
little
bread.
bit
Yeah.
differently. And I wonder about that with you of, you sort of came into this as a journalist looking at the health and science, and then you stumbled into a whole bunch of cultural rooms, including meeting me in a sauna at a sauna festival, including all these other spaces all over the world. What were the things that kind of surprised you and awoke you to this being broader than just a health exercise? And you write about it winsomely in the book, but give a few examples of like what was the cultural impact on you?
Yeah. So, cultural impact. It was interesting going to saunas in Finland, just how relaxed everybody was about it. Nobody was timing anything. Nobody was checking to make sure you stayed in the cold plunge for 90 seconds. It was just, you're just going about your day. It was like happy hour almost, at least in the public places. So that was one thing. Um, and people were kind of doing, you kind of do what feels right to you. And it's a way of like getting in touch with your inner body, right? How you feel, how do you feel in this hot sauna? Can you push through a little bit farther and then get out? Okay, so that's the physical side of it. The cultural side, I've been to Japan. I've done the onsens, the hot springs. They're wonderful. I went to a hammam in Morocco when I was backpacking as a college student, and thank God I had three buddies with me, because we got the full back-breaking massage by big sweaty ogre dudes. But that was an intense cultural experience, and that was actually my first heat bathing experience. Come to think of it, hammam in Fez, Morocco. Um, but they're all variations of the same thing, and they all, if you want to, they haven't had studies done about them as much, but they all kind of do the same thing. I mean, they've found that Japanese people who take a lot of hot baths also have the reduction in cardiovascular disease. They've done studies finding that just sitting in a hot tub has similar physiological effects to sitting in a sauna. So it almost doesn't matter. So it's whatever, you know, it almost doesn't matter where the heat comes from. I think somebody asked about that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like this example that you brought up that in many places it's less of a workout space and more of a gathering space.
Yeah,
Sort of me
absolutely.
growing up around these things, when the family was gathered and everybody was at the dinner table, somebody was heating the sauna and we'd be heading there afterwards.
Yeah.
And and in public saunas, it's these great examples of the spot to connect with neighbors and friends and folks you don't, do or don't know. And that logic in the States, I think, is just, it's so new. It's so
Yeah.
unassuming and new. And yet, there are examples of like the Russian and Turkish baths in New York. That's been going for 100 plus years. It is a gathering spot. Last week, I was at the Ely Steam Sauna in Ely, Minnesota. It's the
Oh,
longest
awesome.
running continuous public sauna in Minnesota. It is an institution. I met a guy there who had been going there for 50 years, and his kids and his grandkids now have been there with him. And we see that is true too of this public saunas in Finland and these public bathing expressions around the
Yeah.
world,
Yeah.
Bill. They're the place of connection and belonging, not
Yeah.
just the spa to go be seen at or to dote on yourself or to treat yourself. And I think that's pretty
Yeah.
captivating around when
Yeah.
we think about maybe what could the future of sauna look like. Josh is mentioning, went to the saunas in Tampere, which is ones, Bill, you've been to
Yeah.
and you write about right here in
I
the
want to
book.
go
So
back.
Josh, you're going to want to read that chunk of it.
I want to go
Uh,
back there.
Bill, tell
Thought I
me
have.
about this as we sort of land the plane here. What's your take then? What are the most important benefits or values around sauna that we sort of should be working towards and looking for, uh, maybe as opposed to just what's the right protocol? I think you're giving us better questions to ask here.
I think at the end of the story, I think you might come into it from the health perspective, at least on this side of the Atlantic. But I think ultimately it does something that's more um, emotional, it's more communal, it's more maybe even psychological. They've used sauna-like treatments against depression with some promise. And you're right, these saunas are gathering places. You're talking about these old places. The one you and I went to in Salt Lake, um, called Sauna Public, that's become like a neighborhood gathering spot. And it's just been open, it hasn't even been open a year.
Yep.
There's always people in there from the neighborhood. And I think the heat, like, it does something that I can't quite put my finger on, but it's almost like having a beer. It like disinhibits you in a way.
hmm
And you talk, you want to talk, you want to, either with the person you came with or whoever.
There's an old Nordic proverb that says all people are created equal, but nowhere more so than in the sauna. And
Absolutely.
that I think that's the idea that you're mentioning there. There's this like level of egalitarian vulnerability of we're just humans in this space. We're
Yeah.
not the lawyer and the writer and the business owner and the teacher,
Yeah.
like we so often are, and like we so often are sort of pulled away by our phones and distractions.
Yeah.
We're in this, we're human together, and
Yeah.
that creates
Especially
a
if you're
level of
naked. If you're
connection.
naked in a sauna in Finland,
It's about as
hard to
vulnerable as
get
it
more
gets,
equal
right?
than that. Yeah.
Yep. Well, Bill, there's a couple questions flying in, and
Let's
we're
do
we're
it.
running low on time, and we have to give away a flight to Finland. And
Oh, some
so,
lucky person.
as our guests and Minia comes back in, I want to ask one or two more of these really quick. Christina asked Bill, "What do you wish people in North America would understand or adopt in regards to sauna? Was there some cultural moment that you said, 'Oh, this is so good,' and everybody over here is missing it?"
I think going at your own pace is important and not feeling like you should do it, but figuring out your why and what you like about it. And if you don't like it, that's fine too. It's not for everyone, right? So I think listening to yourself is key.
Yeah, I think that's also a really helpful flip of the protocol, which is so not about listening to your own body. It's
Yeah.
about can I make it 15 minutes at a certain temperature? So well done there. Uh, Bill, this has been great. For
Yeah,
those who
Justin.
are interested in everything Bill is saying, I cannot recommend enough Hotwired, How the Hidden Power of Heat Makes Us Stronger. Bill, it's a really fun read. I know we
Thank
talked
you.
a lot about science in here, everybody,
We
but
did.
it's it's
It's
it's narrative nonfiction. It's Bill telling you stories of traveling to Finland and riding his bike in the middle of Texas, and you do a great job, Bill, of sort of making the science understandable and accessible, and making me
Thank you.
want to turn pages. So thanks for being a great writer and a great communicator, and for like diving into this wild world that so many of us on the call, hold near and dear around
It's
sauna
so
culture.
fun. Love sauna. I love sauna people. You're fantastic to hang out with. It's been great getting to know you, Justin, and in this journey. So thank you for this great conversation.
Absolutely. Well, Minia, this is almost it. This almost marks then the end of National Sauna Week. And you are back here to give away the coolest, biggest offer, which is it all sounds good. The health benefits sure are there. And you got plane tickets and tickets to the World Sauna Forum to give away. Minia, I think you
That's
should
right.
you should you
Yes.
should close us off.
Thank you. I look forward to the day where they have tools that can measure how much one's spirit is cleansed in the sauna. You know what I mean? But yes, let's get into the giveaway. But first, I would like to give a huge thank you. This can't be done alone. This is the Sauna Week team. Behind the scenes, we have Megan Theed, from left to right here, Erika Laine, Sara Vihavainen, and Kasha Fries. They have been so helpful in running this major program. So thank you to all of the Sauna Week team. They've just been stellar. All right, and the winner is Nicole Luttrell from Belfast, Maine. Nicole,
Nicole,
I don't think you're here, but
congratulations.
congrats. You're going to Finland this June for the World Sauna Forum. Can you believe it? We'll be in touch. Awesome. So cool. We had over 1,000 people enter to win, so that's really wonderful. I'll close up by just saying thank you, a huge thank you to everyone for showing up, for being curious, for being welcoming, and for helping carry this beloved tradition forward. Sauna has always been a place of connection, of connecting to our inner selves, connecting to nature, connecting to each other, and connecting to something greater than ourselves. So wherever you are, may you always carry that warmth with you wherever you go. Or as the Star Wars version is, may the warmth be with you always. Thank you. Happy Sauna Week. We'll see you next year. The recordings will be up online. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Justin. Let's get in the sauna.
That's where I'm heading next. I'm going there next, everybody. What a joy to have you all here. Bill, thanks for being with us.
Great to be
And
here.
I think that's it, Minea. Kiitos, and thank you for a great National Sauna Week 2026. And we'll see you all in the sauna or next year. Bye, you guys.
See you on the bench.
Thank you. Ethos.